Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Professor K.P. Rao, Department of History, University of Hyderabad. Under the subject Indian Culture, in the paper Principles and Methods of Archaeology, today we are going to learn the module on excavation of the burials. The objectives of the study is to learn the importance of the burials, the different methods used in excavating the ancient burials, the methods used in recording the evidence, and the retrieval of the burial material. The excavation of the burials in archaeological investigations is very important because burials give us very important evidence. For example, almost the whole of Egyptian civilization as is reconstructed based on the evidence collected from the burials. Burial excavation is very important because we get lot of information about the society, their practices, the ethnicity of the people, the food habits, their burial practices, the physique of the deceased, the food habits, the profession of the individuals, etc. can be gathered from the burials. And burials also contain a lot of other related material which is usually known as the funerary assemblage. Different communities followed different burial practices, and the excavation of the burials helps us in knowing about these practices. So burials are usually made below the ground level, existing ground level in those days. So that means the excavation of the burials naturally starts from the point when we touch the topmost level of the pit. Usually when we notice a pit and if we suspect that it is likely to contain a burial, then usually what we have to do is we have to take up the excavation only in half of the pit, and then we have to trace the burial's stratigraphic relation with the habitation, and also we have to synchronize the burial evidence with the habitational evidence, and also we have to trace the different layers within the burial pit, because when the burial is made, they usually use different kinds of material to fill up the pit. And also sometimes we have to trace even the post burial disturbance also. We have to, when we do the excavation of these burials, we have to conduct the excavation without disturbing their internal relationship with the other burial material which is kept along with the skeletal remains. So that is what is known as the in situ excavation, that is without disturbing the material. We have to only remove the waste material or the soil that is surrounding the skeletal remains. We should also record properly the entire process of excavation. At different stages, we have to keep on recording properly using various kinds of methods like descriptive method, illustrative method, and photographic method. The whole process of excavation at different stages have to be recorded while doing the burial excavation. Usually this, as I was telling, the bones are very fragile material. We have to be very careful in conducting the burial excavation. One of the first things that is required while conducting the excavation is to see that the burial area is properly protected from various elements. Especially we have to protect the moisture in the burial. We should not allow the burial area to dry up because of its exposure to direct sunlight. So we should not allow the burial area to be exposed to midday heat. And then we have to, for this, we have to cover the burial area, usually with a plastic sheet or a tarpaulin or some kind of material like that, to protect the moisture in the burial area. And also we have to take care to protect the burial area from rain and wild animals, because if the burial is affected by rain, then the evidence is likely to be spoiled. And also, especially when we are away from the excavation site, like during the night time, etc., there is likelihood that the wild animals or sometimes the domestic animals like dogs, etc., coming to the area and sometimes digging up the burial area. So we have to take preventive measures to protect the burial from such dangers. And since the burial material, especially the skeletal remains, are a very fragile material, we have to use very small special instruments like forceps, needle, scalpel, blower brush, small brushes, etc. Special equipment have to be used. And especially one difficulty we face while exposing the skeletal remains is that the skeletal remains are surrounded by the soil deposits, and sometimes these soil deposits may be very hard. And if you try to pull this hard soil, what happens is the bones also will come off. So in such situation, what we have to do is we have to soften the deposit by using diluted alcohol. And in case if the bones are too fragile and they are wilting, then what we have to protect the bones or strengthen the bones by using 5% polyvinyl acetate. And also while exposing the skeletal remains, we have to see that sufficient support is left below the bones. We should not go on exposing or removing the soil that is below the bones, because we have to leave sufficient support for the bones to stay in their place. We have to continuously do the recording using all the three methods which I have told earlier, that is the descriptive method, drawing method, and the photographic methods have to be used. So when we take the photographs, we need special care. Special care in the sense the photograph should include things like a scale, name of the site, trench number, quadrant number, the pit number, the burial number, the north point that indicates the orientation of the burial, the scales, the layer numbers, etc. have to be there in the photograph, so that any observer who sees the photograph will instantly know the orientation of the burial or the size of the skeleton, size of various components, etc. So we have to take care to include all this information in the photograph. That means the photograph itself should speak all this information. So we have to take care to include all this information. And then collection of the bones also requires special care. If the bones are sufficiently strong and having sufficient strength, they can be collected in cloth bags. And when we collect these bones, we have to include information or details like the site name, trench name, field season, layer number, depth, pit number, burial number, layer number, etc. have to be included in the slip which we are going to attach to the bag, and one such slip also should be put inside the bag. And fragile bones needs special packing. Special packing in the sense if the bones are breaking and losing the shape, etc., what we have to do is usually in a cardboard box we have to put a layer of surgical cotton, and over that we can put aluminum foil, and we can put the rest of the bones on the aluminum foil. The aluminum foil and the cotton adjust properly to the contour of the bone and provide proper support. And if the bones are meant for DNA analysis or dating, etc., these bones have to be specially packed in aluminum foil without touching or without seeing without any contamination. Small bones of the left and right legs or the hands have to be packed separately in separate bags. So the excavation of the megalithic burials. For excavating some of the burials, we have to use different kind of techniques, and they are usually round structures. So, and each monument is a separate entity, because we are not sure that all these megalithic burials found at a place are made at the same place. So, we consider each megalithic circle or the burial as a separate entity, and they require special methods to excavate. So, the megalithic circles and cairn burials are excavated using two methods known as the quadrant method and the strip method. In quadrant method, the circle is usually divided into 4 quadrants following the cardinal directions, that is east, west and north, south. So, for excavating a megalithic burial, first of all, we have to fix the peg marks or the stakes on 4 cardinal directions about 2 meters away from the circle area. And these peg marks are marked as east, west and north and south respectively, based on the direction in which they are fixed. And then after that, we have to fix a 5-inch or so nail at the bottom of each of this peg, and then we have to tie trenching thread from these nails. So, once the trenching thread is tied across these nails from east to west and north to south, then the burial area is divided into 4 quadrants, and each quadrant is named as depending on the direction in which they lie. That is, for example, we have northwest quadrant, northeast quadrant, southwest quadrant, southeast quadrant. So, after fixing the quadrants, then we have to select 2 diagonally opposite quadrants for excavation. And in these selected quadrants, when we excavate first, we need not leave any bark. So, we excavate in the 2 diagonally opposite quadrants, and when we touch the burial, and after taking all the care that has been described or followed for the general excavation of the burials described earlier, we after completing the recording, then we take up the excavation in the rest of the 2 quadrants following the quadrant method. And while excavating the other 2 quadrants, we have to leave 50 centimeters bark along the trenching thread. After studying the stratigraphy of the burial deposit, the bark is also removed, and a complete documentation of the burial contents is taken up following all the 3 methods of documentation. So, the advantage of this method is that it helps us in maintaining stratigraphic relationship of the burial and the covering deposit. So, that is the advantage of using the quadrant method and also leaving the bark. But this quadrant method has some disadvantages. that is, in case if there are burials separately in the middle of the quadrant, or if there are some burials which are made at a later period in the middle of the quadrant, then their stratigraphic relationship with the other burial area is lost. So, to overcome this difficulty, another method is also proposed, that is known as the strip method. So, in strip method, the entire area of the stone circle is divided into equal strips of 1 meter in north-south orientation, and they are numbered using the English alphabet like A, B, C, D, E, F, etc. And then after marking the area using the dividing it into strips, then excavation is taken up in alternate strips first. So, after excavating alternate strips and after exposing the burial contents, skeletal remains, etc., and after recording the stratigraphic relationship and all that, then we take up excavation in the rest of the strips also. In this manner, we expose the whole burial area, and the advantage of following the strip method is that stratigraphic relationship of different burials that are present in the burial area or the circle area is maintained well. So, that is the advantage of this strip method. And apart from this quadrant method and strip method, sometimes we may have to use a different method for excavating burials like schist burials. So, the schist burials are usually the burials made in stone chambers. So, these stone chambers are usually constructed using thin stone slabs, usually known as the orthostats. So, these are usually 4 orthostats on the 4 directions, or otherwise sometimes there may be more also, and these chambers are usually covered by capstones or covering slab. The burial remains, the skeletal remains, etc., are usually kept inside these schist burials. So, when we excavate the schist burials, we have to follow the methods like stratigraphic excavation. So, for that what we have to do is, again excavation of the schist burial starts from the point we trace the burial pit. When we know the shape of the burial pit, what we have to do is we have to divide the burial pit either following the cardinal directions or otherwise following the direction of the schist. So, we usually divide the area into 2 halves, and usually excavation is taken up only in 1 half of the area. And after reaching the almost the bottom of the schist, we have to make a complete record of the stratigraphic relationship, the different layers that are present in the pit, etc. So, and after complete recording using all the methods, then excavation is taken up in the, if already the schist is exposed, then in the schist the excavation is taken up after removing the capstone. So, sometimes one difficulty that we face is the place is very restricted, the space inside the schist is very restricted. In such situation, what we have to do is we have to remove one of the orthostat and then conduct the excavation in the place that is available. So, after excavating both the halves and then after exposing the skeletal remains as well as the funerary assemblage or the burial remains, we have to conduct the complete recording in the methods that is described for the burial excavations. So, in this manner we conduct excavation of the megalithic burials. So, let us sum up what we have learnt today in the burial excavation. So, the burial excavation is very important because it reveals lot of information about the society, about the individual, about the health of the individual, reason for the death, the food habits, the burial practices, their beliefs, the composition of the community. All this information is revealed by the burial excavation. So it is very important. So burial excavation also requires special procedure and special tools, because the material that we are going to deal is very fragile material. So the burial excavation starts from the point when we trace the pit. So from the point when we detect the pit, from that point onwards, we have to take special care to plan the excavation of the burials. And also when we do the excavation, we have to always conduct systematic documentation of the burial excavation at different stages. And the photographs should include all the information that is required in the photograph. And special care is required while packing the skeletal remains and handling of the skeletal remains. So all these things are required while doing the burial excavation. So while conducting the excavation, we have to take care that the stratigraphic relation of the burial and as well as its relationship with the habitational site is studied well and maintained well. So for this, what we have to do is, first of all, we have to divide the burial area into two halves, and the excavation is taken up only in one half. So by this method, what happens is, we have a section of the whole of the pit in a vertical section, and we can see different layers that are there in the burial pit and its relationship with the habitational deposit. And also it helps us in studying the different layers that are there in the burial pit. So once we complete excavation in one half of the burial, including exposure of the skeletal remains and the burial assemblage, we have to make a complete record of the stratigraphy and the burial contents, etc., using all the descriptive, illustrative and photographic methods. And then we have to take up excavation in the other half. So by this method, following this method, we can assure that the stratigraphic relationship of the burial with its contents as well as with the habitational deposit is studied well.